Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
What's going on, guys? It's Filthy and I'm back with another video. Today we're looking at the Thorns of the Invoker, which is going to be the starting set for the Crusader for Season 21. The set itself is very powerful. We can do GR90, 800 Paragon, no augments and completely trash gear. That's with about 6.5 minutes to spare maybe. Pretty easy and yeah, pretty powerful. We can also do speed farm, so 75, I'll show you a setup that I use for that. Not the best for speed farming because it is just so single target focused, but before we do jump in and take a look at all of it, I just want to welcome anyone who's new to the channel. Thank you so much for all the support and subscriptions over the last few months, it really has been absolutely amazing. But jumping in and looking at Invoker, this is a very unique set in this game. It deals all of its damage through Thorns, so you don't need any particular damage on your character sheet. So I've only got 78k sheet damage. It doesn't matter because all the damage is coming through Thorns. So Thorns figure, mine's under 220,000, so not particularly high. I could certainly juice this up an awful lot more. Obviously it would just be doing even more damage. Now importantly, Thorns can't crit, so you don't want any critical hit chance or any critical hit damage on any of your gear. You don't even want plus damage on your weapon or any of your rings or anything like that. You just basically want Thorns everywhere you can get it, full defensive stats, but most importantly attack speed. And the reason that Thorns is so important will become apparent as we have a quick flick through the 2-piece, 4-piece and 6-piece bonuses. So the 2-piece, the Thorns now damage all enemies within a 15-yard radius around us. That sounds better than it is, to be honest. Each time you hit an enemy with Punish, Slash or we block an attack, our Thorns is increased by 350% for 2 seconds. We will be getting absolutely loads of hits off with Punish with super juiced attack speed. We will also be blocking a lot, so that 2-piece will be activated quite a lot of the time. 4-piece, we get 50% damage reduction for 20 seconds after we damage an enemy with Bombardment. That is completely handled by the Belt of the Trove, which goes in a cube. Every 6 seconds, Bombardment will fall from the sky. If it hits something, it damages it, and therefore we get this 50% damage reduction. Now, if you do proc and you do die, then this drops off, and you need to wait for it to come down and hit something. So it can be a little fiddly if you do actually die, and that's why we've made a few selections with this build, just to smooth it out at the kind of 800 Paragon level. 6-piece, the attack speed of Punish and Slash are increased by 50% and deal 15,000% of our Thorns damage to the first enemy hit. Every time you hit the first enemy, 15,000% worth of Thorns, so obviously the more hits, the more Thorn applications. Now we're actually going to take 5 pieces of Invoker because we're going to mix it with the Crimson set. Now the 2-piece gives us 20% extra cooldown and 20% resource cost reduction. Cooldown is amazing because Crusader's got some really good abilities that all synergize very well with this build, so we want them back as quickly as possible. The resource cost reduction in of itself is not important, but the 3-piece Crimsons basically works so that the more cooldown you have, the more damage you get. It's basically a modifier, and the more resource cost reduction you get, the more damage reduction you get. So more RCR is more toughness. So I've got a couple of rolls on my gear just to beef up my character a little bit, but you don't necessarily need to take it, it is just more damage reduction. Now we're going to take the Traveller's Pledge and Compass Rose because this is an elite sniper build. We only deal single target damage, we want to be attacking high value enemies. What this set does is when we move between target to target, we get up to 50% damage reduction. When we stand still to deal some damage, we get up to 100% extra damage, so synergizes with the playstyle very well. Aquila Crass is going to fit really well with this build because we have no spenders at all, so the secondary on this primary resource stat doesn't matter, we just get double damage reduction for the entire way, so 50% DR is obviously lovely. Now for the weapon and shield that we get on the character, pretty much anything will work with this, but probably best in slot is going to be the pig sticker. It's a dagger, so it's got a very high native attack speed at 1.5 attacks per second, and it rolls with an extra stat, so we can roll that off and roll off the damage essentially and get quite a few stats on this, so it is basically just a stat stick. We also get this nice secondary, beasts and humans suffer extra damage. Obviously not much you can do about that, it's just a bit of extra damage where you can. So that's why the damage sheet figure is so low, because I've actually rolled the damage off this weapon. For the shield, Akarat's Awakening is probably going to be your best bet. Every successful block has a 1 in 4 chance of reducing all of the skills cooldown by 1 second. So everything you've got on cooldown on your bar will have 1 second taken off it once every 4 times that you block an attack. So the more blocks that you have, the more chance you have this for activate. It obviously does do a lot of heavy lifting on the cooldown. Now in terms of sticking with the elite sniper, elite hunter theme, we're going to take a furnace and a cube. 50% extra damage against elites means we can put them down that much quicker. Now I personally found that with 800 Paragon and the gear that I've got, I needed a unity. I couldn't really survive without it. I was just dying too often and getting a bit stuck. But overall, the idea is that you would transition over to a convention of elements for the spike damage window on physical, because Thorns deals physical damage. So you want physical, braces and physical on your amulet. Now in terms of other bits and bobs, we've got the Bane of the Trap legendary gem, so we're going to be up close and personal hitting with those thorn applications, so the secondary will proc the primary of this, so it's just flat damage against anything other than a juggernaut. We've also got the esoteric alteration, really does help with the non-physical damage reduction. When we drop below 50% life, we get increased resistance to cold, fire, lightning, poison and arcane, so it basically just makes us a lot tougher. Again, in theory, this is something you would transition out of the build once you get in better gear and more main stat. You would look to take the Bane of the Stricken to basically dump the Rift Guardian down as much as you can. Now, other than that, we've got the Rogue in the cube to make up the 6-piece bonus for Invoker and the 3-piece Crimsons. Other than that, guys, this is pretty much how I would set it up in terms of gear. As you're leveling through and you're finding Invoker pieces, pretty much anything will work with this. The only item I'd say is really important to get is the Belt of the Trove, because it means that you can take bombardment off your bar. It's on a long cooldown, so this just makes it very easy. Other than that, obviously it's nice to get another 50% damage reduction. It's nice to get 50% extra damage against elites. It's nice to have a fast attacking weapon with loads of stats on it, and it's nice to get the extra cooldown. But none of this stuff is essential. You could literally stick almost any kind of gear with this. You know, a hack early on would be very good. It would apply thorns when you hit. It's the spider shield that when you provoke enemies they take double damage from thorns. You know, pretty much any single-handed weapon will be nice here. You could even take a two-hander if you wanted. But what I'm getting at basically is it's really easy to put this together. That's definitely one of the selling points for it. Now having a look at the skills, what we're going to take is Laws of Valor Invincible. Now the passive law for this is going to give us basically 8% attack speed, so we just get 8% all the time. When we pop this, we get 15% attack speed for 5 seconds, and the rune Invincible basically gives us pretty big life per hit. So again, if you can build your toughness up enough, then you can rely on this for a source of sustain. Bear in mind it only lasts for 5 seconds and then it's gone. Now Punish Celerity, this is how we're going to obviously attack and apply the thorns. What happens is we get this kind of Hardened Senses effect, which increases our block chance. That's great because it means more activation of the Akarat's Awakening Shield. And also what it does then is when we do block, we gain 15% attack speed. So more block chance basically means more attack speed, which is obviously pretty good. Iron Skin Reflective Skin, this will give us a 50% damage reduction. It only lasts 4 seconds, so again it will disappear fairly quickly. But it will also give us a 300% increase to the thorns, which is pretty big. Can juice up those thorn hits quite a lot. Provoke Hit Me will kind of provoke enemies to hit you. You also importantly get a 50% block chance increase. So when we've got this up, when we've got the Punish Hardened Senses, we do get quite good block chance, and that again does a lot of the heavy lifting on the cooldown via the shield that we've got. Steed Charge Endurance is how we're going to get about the map and find targets. Endurance makes it last longer. That's essential. We don't really want to be stopping to kill any trash. It's just not time efficient. We want to look only for elites. Now the great thing about Steed Charge is it lets you pass through enemies unhindered, so you don't get stuck on stuff. If you don't have access to this, you get caught in a corridor, you're going to have to punch your way out with Punish, which is just very slow. So Steed Charge, very useful. Akarat's Champion, obviously a staple in all Crusader builds. We get 35% increased damage. Wrath regen does not matter at all. Huge 150% armor, which makes us really tough when this is active. It is also a cheat death. And what I've found is that with the level of cooldown that I've got, again the gear's not perfected, it's not an end game sort of setup that I'm showing you. I can't keep this up enough to rely on Prophet, so I have decided to take Indestructible as another passive, just in case something goes wrong. I don't think I actually proc it in the footage that I filmed, but when I was testing it, I was relying on this, and maybe I just got lucky with the map and the footage. Iron Maiden is going to give us another 50% thorns, obviously that just synergizes really well with the Invoker set. Further, when we use a one-handed weapon, we get 15% attack speed. Brilliant, more attack speed is more thorn applications, and also 15% cooldown, so even more cooldown for our lovely abilities that we like. Finery is going to give us 1.5% strength for every gem socketed, so this just translates into more damage and also more toughness. Again, ideally if you get your builds set up slightly better than I have, you would work off Indestructible, take Fanaticism for another 15% attack speed. But as I say, I like to keep my builds nice and smooth. I don't really like the kind of spike incoming damage and it killing me. I don't like getting stuck, so I've decided this is the way to run it. Now, in terms of stats, attack speed is something that you really want to get. You want to get life per hit as well, but other than that, cooldown is more damage from the Crimsons, and other than that, it's just main stat. You don't, as I say, need any crit or any crit damage. Just cooldown, resource cost reduction obviously is more toughness, and in general, you can build a fairly beefy character pretty easily. Now, in terms of playstyle, when you jump into the Rift, all you want to really do is activate Steed Charge to go and find your first elite victim. You don't want to stop for anything else. When you do find a target, you then want to pop all your abilities, so Akarat's Champion, Iron Skin and Provoke, and then just smash away with Punish. You do have Laws of Valor at Invincible as well, so you can pop that. So really it kind of depends. I was just popping all the abilities on top of stuff and trying to down it as quickly as possible. But in theory you could stagger these and have them go off at separate points. As I say, I just find playing it kind of brainless. Run up to the enemy, pop everything, smash it in the face, pop the Steed Charge, go find the next one and rinse and repeat. And what you might find is that because you're only doing elites, you might actually get to the end of the road. You might get to a little obelisk that says this is the end of the map. If that's the case, you've got to backtrack and go and either start killing regular mobs, which is dead slow, or look for the elites that you've probably missed whizzing through with Steed Charge. So that is a little bit of a frustration with the build. But as I say, 800 Paragon, no augments, really low main stat. It is very, very strong. So for the speed build, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to take off the Crimsons and put the Belts of the Trove on the character, and also put the Invoker boots back on. Again, I haven't even bothered to roll these properly, but this is to allow us to get Nemesis braces in the cube, which is obviously essential for a speed build. And because we don't have the Rourke anymore, we're going to be able to take the Flavour of Time for pylon effects lasting twice as long. Absolutely godly if you get a conduit pylon, because that's brilliant for Invoker. And then Swift Mount will double the duration of Steed Charge, and this will pretty much allow us perma uptime on it. Pretty close, to be honest, and it just means that we can find the next victim pretty easily. And just in case we do get stuck and we don't have Steed Charge available, we've got the Wings of Angels, so Law of Hope Wings of Angels. This gives us the effect where we can just basically run through stuff unimpeded, and we get 50% move speed. I've also swapped the rune on Iron Skin to Flash, again, so that when we do get hit, we just get that move speed. So the idea is we're just going to zip as quickly as possible from elite to elite, and that will, hopefully speaking, be pretty good. The rest of it is the same, so we're still going to take the Traveller's Pledge and Compass Rose, just because, again, we may as well have the damage reduction whilst we're hopping from enemy to enemy. But if you find that you've got plenty of DR, you could always dump the Unity for a convention of elements. You could always take the Flavour of Time, stick it on the character, put something else in the jewellery slot, so pretty flexible. But the idea basically is with the Swift Mount, with the Steed Charge, we're just trying to cover as much of the map as quickly as possible, working in Nems and Flavour of Time to just speed those rifts up to, hopefully speaking, somewhere around 3.5, 4 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes if you get a bad map. And that's one of the reasons why I would switch off Invoker for a different build, especially for the speed farm. Now, the Aegis of Valor probably has a better push build than the Invoker Thorns. They are fairly close. Thorns does do a lot of damage, and obviously 800 Paragon GR90 with rubbish gear, you are pretty happy. But AOV has got much better speed farm access, and that's probably why I would be trying to gear off this and onto something else. But that is the Invoker set, so I hope you have enjoyed the video. I will be back with some more Season 21 content just as soon as I can. Take it easy. Peace.